Hi, my name is Leandro Facchinetti, and let's write some code together, shall we? What we have on the menu today is part 12 of this series of streams in which I am maintaining a package called caxa that I developed. The purpose of caxa is to package Node.js applications into a single executable binary. And we are near the end of this series of streams because last time we have implemented all the features we would like to release in version 2.0, which is what we are working towards. And what we have left to do today is to write some tests for all those features and maybe write some documentation and then ship. That's what I want to do. I really want to ship 2.0. And we have worked on the past several weeks to implement support for ARM architectures. So you can run an application package by caxa in a Raspberry Pi, for instance. And we have fixed some bugs, and we have implemented the command line flags that allow you to customize the build. So everything that was hard-coded in the caxa packaging function is now parameterizable. And I guess I want to go over what we did yesterday because I think that there may be some small changes I want to make, like the names of some things. And then we'll go to the tests, which, by the way, are not passing on the continuous integration server probably because of an old version of Node. That's my bet, because it worked even on Linux ARM. So I bet that the problem was an old version of Node that was behaving differently. So we'll need to write better tests that will take that in account. But let's start by going over all the options we introduced recently, which will also be sort of like a code review of sorts. So input, output, and command are fixed. Input is your project, output is the executable we are generating, and command is what you want to run after caxa unpacks your application into a temporary directory, because that's how caxa works. It packages your application into a self-extracting executable, and when you want to run your application, it unpacks the application into a temporary folder and runs whatever command you tell it to run from there. Then force is, I guess, a good name. So force is, if there is already something at the output, remove it. And by default, we want to do that. So by default, it will overwrite whatever is there. And I'm trying to remember what should happen if we... So first of all, if we are forcing... Okay, so if we are not forcing and the output already exists, then we error out. That seems good. But what happens if you are forcing and the file already exists? So I guess one way of making sure that this will work out correctly is right here when I'm creating the directory that will contain the output. So if you tell me that you want to generate a binary at a/b/c/d, then I create, so maybe you're saying that the output should be a/b/c/d, that's the name of your executable, but the directories a, b, and c don't exist, I create them. That's what this line is doing. But I guess right after doing this, I can also remove the output. So if the output is a folder, it will overwrite, it will delete the folder and create a file instead. And yeah, so I think it's a nice idea to do it right here. And then let's see what else we do with the output. So yeah, here I'm creating some directories in there and whatnot. That's fine. So that's a mode of operation in which you create a .app out of your application. So if you are on a Mac, you can create a .app. And a .app, an application bundle, really is just a directory with a specific structure. So I create the folder structure here in this part, and I put every file in the right place so that it creates a .app. And that's how this works. But this one is the self-extracting executable. So let's look at how the output is used. We copy the stub. So the stub is this Go program that is responsible for unpacking your project somewhere. So the stub is actually a binary written in Go. So we copy that to the output. We use the write mode, and then we append the tarball of your project. The archive here is the tarball of your project. We append that to the output, and then we append a footer with some JSON. So that's fine. So it seems like this behavior will override regardless of the situation, even if you have a directory in that path, it will overwrite that path. Okay, so that's force. Now let's talk about exclude. Exclude is a list of files. You can see that it's not used anywhere in the body of the code, but it's a list of files that will be used by the filter function. So exclude is a list of files that you don't want to include in your package. Maybe like the .git directory is something that you may want to put in the excludes list. And then the filter is this function that will be passed to the thing that copies. Yeah, here, right here. So we copy your project into a build directory, and you pass along this filter function that is responsible for telling which files you don't want to copy. So we use the exclude to build the filter function, and then we pass the filter function to the thing that copies over your project into the temporary directory. And filter seems like a very generic name. Also, filter is not used on the command line, so I think it would be fine for us to rename this. So every occurrence of filter could maybe be filter files or something. But at the same time, this is what FS Extra calls this. So I guess I'll leave this name. And let's read over filter real quick. So we are using globby to find all the exclude files. We want to exclude directories, so we don't expand directories, and we say only files false. So this way paths to exclude include directories as well. And then, is this type annotation necessary? Yes. And this is really the filter. So I have an immediately invoked function expression here, so that I can do this paths to exclude variable that I then use in the function that is actually the filter function, the default one. You can pass another one. And then dedupe is whether you want to run a specific command on your build directory that dedupes, so removes duplication of node modules, and also takes out all the modules that are not for production, so your development modules. So dedupe is this really nice command that we found in a previous stream. It does both things. It removes duplication and removes the development dependencies. Then prepare is just a function that will be called with the build directory, and you can pass whatever you want here. You can then do any kind of work to prepare your application for packaging. Then include node is whether you want to include the Node.js executable into the package so that it's available for you to run after the package unpacks into the temporary directory. And for me to do that, I just ensure that this will, the directory will be there, and then I copy over the file, which is the Node.js executable that is running caxa itself, which I think is a really nice trick. So I guess I can extract this into, I could extract this path into a variable of sorts. Yeah, let's do that. So node, do we have another variable named node anywhere? I don't think so. Okay. So maybe we call this node, and this is the path where I would like to copy node to. And then in here, I could say that I want just the dir, just the directory. How do I do that? Like this, dir name. So I can say path dir name of node, and then in here I can say node. And let's read over what we have here. So node is path join of the build directory. So this is where the node will be copied to. So your build directory, node modules bin, and then path base name of exec path, which is myself, so node itself. So this will build the node path that will exist in your package, and we only do that if you want to include node, of course. And then we ensure that the directory exists, and then we copy over the exec path to there. Okay, looks good. And then remove build directory is whether at the end of the build you want to remove the build directory so it doesn't clutter your development machine. And identifier is this string that will be a path when I say that your application will be extracted into a temporary directory. The temporary directory's name is based on this identifier that must be unique every time you package your application. And by default, it will be the name of your output without the extensions, and then a random string. And ideally, you would never touch this. So many of these parameters are advanced parameters that people shouldn't touch often. And this is probably the one that is the most advanced that most people should never touch, because the identifier must be unique. As I said, when I'm extracting the app into a temporary directory, I will look for this identifier, and if multiple builds have the same identifier, things will not behave correctly. In any case, let's double check that all the types are right. Input, input, output, output, command, command, force, force, exclude is a string array, filter, we copied this from fs extra. Maybe we could try to get this from the type of the function that we call, but I don't think that would be convenient. Yeah. TypeScript has some facilities for you to extract like the parameter of a function or the type of the parameter of a function, but this is way deep into fs copy, so I guess hard coding this is the best we can do. Then dedupe will be a boolean, prepare will be a function, include node will be a boolean, remove build directory is a boolean, identifier is a string. Now here for the implementation of this guy, I don't think I need to go over everything that is in here again. I can just quickly glance at it and make sure that everything makes sense. And I was thinking that maybe we would rename some of the parameters, but we ended up not renaming anything. Let me move this to do here to the tests file. Because I think we are about to wrap the implementation itself. So let me split the screen and I will look at the command line parameters and the function parameters and see if they match. And of course they should. So input, output, and command. And then force, no force, exclude, a list of paths. Filter you cannot pass because filter is a function. So you cannot pass a function from the command line. If you want to use filter that is not based on exclude, then you must use the JavaScript API. Dedupe, no dedupe, prepare. And this is kind of cute. This prepare will be a command that you can pass. And then I will run that command in the right directory. And then include node is just a boolean, no include node, and build remove build directory, just a boolean, and identifier is just a string. And then I have some documentation, some examples. Then in here I have input, output, force, exclude, dedupe, prepare, include node, remove build directory, and identifier. So all of these match these ones. And then I call caxa with pretty much just forwarding the inputs from the command line, except for prepare. So maybe I could have like a prepare command. I guess I will have that because we have the exclude and filter duality. So I think it would be nice to have a prepare command and prepare duality as well. So we'll work on that momentarily, but let's look at the changes we introduced. And commit. And now let's change this implementation real quick. So here, instead of having just a prepare, we'll have a prepare command, which will be, by default, it will be maybe undefined by default. And then let's see down here where we have the types, we'll say that prepare command is a string if you pass it, but it may be undefined. And then in here I will have, do I have a prepare command? Because if the prepare command is undefined, then this function is going to be that. Or maybe I can do this check in the function body. How about that? So in here I will have, if the prepare command is undefined, then return. Otherwise, I have devised this cute trick here below that is, well, essentially this function. All right, so what we are doing here is we are introducing an extra argument called prepare command. And if prepare command is undefined, then prepare, the function, doesn't do anything. But if prepare command is defined, then I call exec a with the prepare command on the build directory. And now let's change this so that it's not called prepare on the command line. It is called prepare command. It's kind of redundant. Yeah, but I think I prefer it this way. So command to run on the build while packaging. I guess I don't change the description. But then this will be called prepare command. And then down here, I just pass prepare command. And we have embedded that logic into caxa, which makes caxa more flexible and this invocation more straightforward. And I think that's a win. I was doing this trick yesterday and I want to do it again because I want to make sure that the inputs are being passed correctly. So prepare command should, when I call okay, so this is an invocation of caxa, and I can say something like this that includes no prepare command at all, and then this should be undefined. It should print undefined. Now, if I pass a prepare command like this, like maybe echo hello, then prepare command should be echo hello. Excellent. And of course, if I just pass not capital P, but just P for prepare, then this will print hello, echo hello again. Okay, so let's remove these lines and commit what we have over here. All right, looks good to me. And we have a new parameter. So let's go to the tests. And here I have a comment with all the parameters I need to test. I guess prepare is one of them, but let's go over all the parameters that we need to test and leave comments for ourselves here. So we have input, output, and command, and then force has already been tested. Exclude has already been tested, and that's the test that is failing on GitHub, by the way. I looked into that before I started streaming. So we need to fix the test for exclude, but we'll go over all the tests again. But filter is something that we cannot pass on the command line, so whatever, I won't test it. Exclude is already testing filter. And then I'm going to go over everything again, so I can remove the old comments. So force exclude has already been tested, and then we need to write tests for, let me check that exclude has been tested. Yes, the test is right here. So next we need to write tests for dedupe, prepare command, which will indirectly test prepare as well. So yeah, we'll do both of these in one pass. And then include node and remove build directory and identifier. So those are all the things that have not been tested. Let's go over the existing tests. Maybe we want to change something. Maybe we just want to get inspired for how we are going to write the next tests. So I need to set a big timeout here because Jest doesn't wait long enough, and these tests are compiling stuff and packaging stuff, so that's kind of slow to do. Then the caxa directory is the temporary directory, and then tests directory is where I will put the executables from all these tests. I'm literally creating executables. And I want to start with a clean slate, so before everything, I remove the caxa directory. Now, echo command line parameters is this simple program I wrote to show how you can package things and to test. So this is the program. This is my package. It's a single line. It just prints whatever arguments you pass on the command line. And the purpose of this is to test that you are capable of embedding command line arguments when you are creating the package. So you can say which command should run. And when you're doing that, you can embed some command line arguments, but also you can pass extra command line arguments when you're calling. So this is the program that I'm testing. The output will be the executable. It will be in the tests directory. And then I call caxa, so ts node source index input output. So the input will be the examples folder echo command line parameters. The output will be this path in the tests directory. And then the command that I want to run is node with index, but also some embedded command line arguments. And then when I call, so output is my executables. When I call the executable with some extra command line arguments, all of them get concatenated and I get an invocation with all of them at once. So that test looks awesome to me. Next, we have this test for this novelty, which is to build a .app. And it is again the echo command line parameters, output the same, and then we call caxa. And the only difference is that now we put a .app at the end of the name, which is a way of telling caxa that I want to build a .app. And I cannot really test double clicking on the .app, but I can output something that says this is what you need to do to run to test the .app, but I can call, I can call this script that will be in the .app, and this script will, this reads better. So I can call this script from in there, which is the next best thing I can do to actually double clicking on the .app. So that's what I do, and then I look at the outputs, so that looks fine. And then this test is testing native modules, which is a problem with many other packaging solutions in Node.js. It's not a problem with caxa because of the self-extracting nature of how caxa works, but this test is slow, and it's particularly slow on Linux ARM because there are no precompiled binaries for Linux ARM, and you would have to compile all the native modules in this example from scratch, which is super slow. So I don't want to run the tests on Linux ARM, so I check, am I not on Linux? If so, proceed. Or I always get hung up on this conditional. It took me half an hour to write this. So if the process platform is not Linux, it means I am in macOS or Windows, run the test. Or if the process architecture is Intel 64, run the test. So even if I am in Linux, but I am in an Intel processor, there will be precompiled binaries, so I just run the test. The test for native modules looks like the other ones, except that I have to npm install on the native modules folder, and that's necessary for a kind of a preparation. And I guess I should not say npm install, I should probably say npm ci, which does a fresh installation every time. So this is similar to like preparing your application for packaging. And I believe maybe we could use the prepare script for this, but I wonder what happens if I move into the examples native modules directory and I make sure that I don't have any of the dependencies installed. So native modules, node modules go away. Now this is like what you would get from cloning the repository if this was a standalone project. If I just run npm dedupe production, will that install the packages? Because we already run npm dedupe in the build process, and it seems like yes. The answer is it does install the packages, so I don't need to run an installation beforehand. It will be installed, everything will be installed in the build directory, which I guess is kind of acceptable. Yeah, not bad. And it's taking a while to install because it's installing native dependencies. Native modules or native dependencies are slow by nature. It probably has to compile some stuff or whatever. So in essence, this example really turns out to be very similar to the other ones. I would say exactly the same as the other ones, which is nice. I like this. I mean, it was not supposed to take this long, but I guess it's fair. Yeah, it's doing some work here. Node modules, the folder has been created, and it's installing stuff in there. So yeah, running dedupe really does install the native module, really does install the node modules. And I would guess it installs only the production ones because I said -- production. So yeah, I'm happy with this. I don't think I need. So if I delete the node modules folder, and I have deleted the line that did, so this line right here that I deleted is the line that would run npm install in that folder. So when I run my tests now, I guess I will do this. Oh, not npm install. Oh, come on. I ran npm install in the native modules directory. That was a mistake. But it appears that no node modules were created. Fair. Okay. So if I go to the caxa folder and run the tests, this we know will take a long time because it will now run all the tests, but it will be at least as slow as the dedupe command I just ran. But I think that the tests will pass. Next, we have this other example programs. We have a false program here. We had the echo command line parameters program that would just test command line parameters. We also have false. We just test the status of the exit. So if you try to exit the program with failure, we need to maintain that failure status when using caxa, and we need to forward that, and we need to be conscious of this forwarding in our Go stub. So we had to do some extra work there for that work. But false is just a program that exits with an error, and we are testing that the error will be forwarded to the output. So here we say output, so we compile the program, and then we run the program, and we expect it to throw an error, command failed with exit code 1. Excellent. So those are all the tests for the basic things in caxa. And now what follows are the tests for the new features we are adding. So all these command line parameters that allow you to customize the build. Let's look at what we have here. All these changes I like. And then what do we have here? Oh, so in the native modules folder where I ran the dedupe, it updated some of the packages, and I am happy with I'm happy having that. So I'll just committing this. And the tests are still running, but they have all passed so far. Otherwise, I think I would have some kind of output here, but we'll see. And now let's look at the tests for the command line flags. So we already have some tests here for some flags, and I want to make sure that they are in order. So we have a test for force, which is the first new flag, and then we have a test for exclude, which is the second new flag. So all this seems fine. Let's look at the test for force. So I have to compile something. So I'm compiling the echo command line parameters, but I'm giving it a different name, so force. And then I am, to test this, I'm compiling 3 times. On the first one, it will compile and create a new file. On the second one, it will overwrite. On the third one, I say that I don't want to overwrite, so I expect a failure. So that's how this works. This line runs once, succeeds, compiles. Runs twice, succeeds, compiles. Runs a third time, and then rejects with an error. The way we are handling this exception was something that I spent like 10 minutes yesterday to get this line, but it appears that on this test for false, I had already figured that out. So what I do is just await expect on something that would return a promise, and I say reject, and I say that it should throw an error. Okay, all the tests have passed. Awesome. And I should also run this on the command line just to make sure. But it should open a window and print some stuff. Yep. Now, what if I don't do... I'm not too convinced that this test like this is actually doing what it's supposed to. So what if I just run it? What if I just run that test? Oh, and by the way, let's check on the examples folder under native modules. It should have no node modules folder, because now we are installing this on the build directory. Awesome. So what if we just run the force test, but we remove the part that checks for force? So we remove this part of the program, and then we run the tests. Now the test should fail. Yeah, it should fail. And it should fail because it should overwrite and not throw an exception. So we'll see if jest... Now I'm really trying to understand how jest works, because jest should look at this to throw error and say, oh, but it did not throw an error, so I should complain and fail the test. Okay, the test failed, and received promise resolved instead of rejected. Awesome. Now, exclude, there is a problem in this test. We know that because on GitHub it failed on this particular test. So the problem is how we are testing exclude, which is kind of ridiculous. So we are creating again a new instance of this echo command line parameters, but with a new name. And then we are compiling. But then instead of just compiling, we are saying exclude. By the way, here note how we said no force. That's what made caxa throw the error. But then we have here this exclude stuff, which is this guy exclude. So it should exclude this file from the build. And yeah, I'm okay with that. So it will exclude this file from the build. And then what I do, instead of running or trying to run this file, it's no longer there. So what I do instead is I run node, and I do this with node instead of doing this on the command line, because I want to check that a file is not there. So I could do something like ls or dir, but if I do it that way, it's platform specific. It will only work on macOS or Linux or Windows. So what I do instead is I use node. And in this node program, I am reading the directory, so I'm listing all the files in the directory, and these are the files that I see. And of course, they were created by dedupe, npm dedupe in that directory, on the build directory. So those are the files that exist in the directory. But the problem is that some old version of npm doesn't create a package JSON file. So instead, I think that our test here should be call node to maybe exists sync with caxa with maybe require fs path, sorry, not fs, require path join caxa and index.js. And this should print false. But let's confirm that it really does print false. So we will go into the examples echo command line parameters. Well, not really, because the file will not be there. So we can test this from here, from up top. So we'll say node print, and then we'll copy over this stuff, and then we'll say not caxa but dot, and this prints false because an index file does not exist. So now we'll go into the examples echo command line parameters, and we'll run the same command, and it will print true. Excellent. So now we wrote a quick command that checks for the existence of a file, and that is our test. So now we can say that we only want to run this test. And by the way, so what I do is I say that this is the command that will run when you run this fake echo command line parameters, and then I run it, and then I see what comes out. So it should, false should come out. So I only want to run the exclude test, and I will run the tests now. the test should pass. And now, because I am looking at the thing that I care about instead of looking at everything else in the directory, this test will pass even in old versions of npm, like the versions available in old versions of Node in the GitHub Actions test that we have. So this passed, and it output false because the file is not there. Excellent. So that's a good test for exclude, and I claimed that this test should pass on GitHub Actions, so we will push, and while the GitHub Actions are running, we'll continue to write the tests for all these 2, 4, 5. Yuck, that's a lot of tests to write. Okay, so how are we going to do the test for dedupe? Well, we can again use the command line per echo command line parameters program, but this time instead of passing exclude, we will pass no dedupe, which of course does not receive any arguments, and then we check maybe for node underscore modules, and again this should not exist in this case because I did not run the dedupe that would create this folder. Let's run just this test to see if this one passes. And meanwhile, let's take a quick peek at the GitHub Actions. So they should be running now. The tests are running now. Excellent. And these tests are the ones that failed before, and they are the slow tests because they go to native dependencies as opposed to these ones. These ones are relatively quick because they don't test native dependencies. But these ones test native dependencies. They are on Intel, so doing that is relatively fast, but it's not too fast. So these tests take longer. Okay, so this test failed. Let's check what could be going wrong. I mean, I don't know. I think it would be beneficial for me to first check if echo command line parameters does not have a node modules folder. It doesn't. Oh, but the node modules folder was created by ourselves to put the node executable in there. So we should be looking instead at something like package json.lock. Let me grab the name from somewhere. So this file is guaranteed to exist even in old versions of npm. By the way, I keep mentioning this. Oh, one of the tests have passed. So, oh no, it failed. It failed. We need to look into that. Maybe the error is the same. No, the error is different. So let's go to the previous failure, and I will show you the thing that I keep bringing up. So these tests have failed yesterday, and they failed because they list the directory, but in an old version of Node 14, npm, the npm that comes bundled with that, doesn't create a package JSON if one doesn't exist, but it does create package lock JSON. So checking for that file is safe. So that's what we are going to do in this test. Because that file should not exist because we did not run dedupe. Okay, that test passed. Next, let's look at prepare command. And here we will pass a command that will be, well, it needs to be platform independent. So what do I do? Maybe I call node with, so remember, this is a command that will run on my machine, so I could call node. Maybe I can call process dot, what is it called? Process dot exec path. And I will put that in quotes. And then I maybe want to like create a file. What if I create a file here on the prepare command, and then I check for its existence down here? That is a proxy for actually, so that is a proxy for actually testing that this command has executed. So yeah, I guess I would do that. So how do I create a file real quick in Node? I can just say require fs and then dot and then write file sync. Do we have something in the Node API for like touching a file? No. So we'll do fs write file sync. We don't need to, we need to give it a path. So prepare output txt, and we need to give it some content, which will be empty, whatever. And now I want to execute this, but I don't necessarily want to print. So let's see the helper node and try to find a flag that executes. I think it's like eval. I remember seeing that yesterday. So yeah, it's dash dash eval evaluate script. So I guess what I want to say is eval like that. Let's check that this makes sense. So can I run node and then pass these parameters? And then look in my directory, there will be a prepare output file. Excellent. So here in the test, I will print the existence of prepare output, which in this case should be true. What if I just run this test? It should pass. Meanwhile, while that is passing, let's look at our new error on the new run. What's going on here? Caxa, post install. All the tests so far passed except for the native modules. Cannot find module fs extra. What? Where is this error coming from? From the native modules, from the unpacked. So there is this temporary directory where I have unpacked the native modules application, and it seems like the index file refers to fs extra. So let's look at the examples, native modules, and then package JSON. It does include fs extra. So maybe the fact that dedupe installs your application is relatively recent in npm, and we are running an older version of npm. So we'll take it back. We will have to come back to our native modules test, and we will have to recover that line that I have deleted that would run npm install. Or maybe we could run a prepare thing. The problem is that the prepare runs after dedupe. Yeah, so I think we need to await exec a of npm ci on the folder examples/native modules. Yeah, I think that's the line I had, but let's check. We can come here to caxa, try to grab an older version. something like from yesterday should work, and then go to all the files, go to the test, and then look for something like install, because it used to be install. And I will copy this from here, and yeah. Okay. So we recovered that line, which should make that test pass. Okay, where were we? We were testing prepare command, and we ran it, and it failed. So prepare command failed with exit code 1. Oh, I think I know the reason. So when I am putting this output file here, I should do that. Maybe this is what I need. So I should put it on the caxa folder, but my prepare command will be run from there. Yeah, so that's not the issue. Let us think. It tried to spawn this, and it said no such thing. But the file exists. It even is node. So let's write a quick throwaway script to test this out. So what I'm doing is, I'll call this remove.js. So we are going to use exec a to run the command. And we are using an asynchronous function, so we'll do an asynchronous block. And then we will await for exec a command, and we'll pass that. And then we call node remove.js. It explodes, so we are able to reproduce the problem. Well, it's trying to find this whole thing as a file, which is incorrect. So let's look at the documentation for exec a. By the way, it seems like I have this fix, so I want to keep this fix, and I want to run that on GitHub Actions while I'm doing this extra work. So for now, this test is passing, so I will skip it, and I will commit that. But I will, of course, not commit the remove file. And then I will push so that GitHub Actions is running my test while I'm doing this investigation. So exec a dot command, same as exec a, except both file and arguments are specified in a single command string. For example, that is the same as that. If the file or an argument contains a space, they must be escaped with backslashes. This matters especially if command is not a constant but a variable. For example, with their name or process CWD, that's exactly our case. Except for spaces, no escaping or quoting is needed. The shell option must be used if the command uses a shell-specific feature, as opposed to being a simple file followed by its argument. So maybe I should pass the shell option. All right, that worked. It should have created a file, prepare output. Here it is. So I'll delete the file, run this again, and we'll see the file being there. So yeah. Okay. I think that what I want to do is just this. I think this will work on every platform. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it will work on every platform. So now let's change this skip to only so that the test runs, and I can remove my remove file probably. Okay, that didn't work. Oh, okay, so we complained about... What did it complain about? It complained about the syntax for this. Oh, okay, okay, okay. So this is not the instance of exec A that I should modify. Because it's the instance that is running the prepare command, so... It is... Where is it? This instance. Well, shell is just another option, so say shell true. Forgot to run prettier. Yes, I did. Meanwhile, let's look at what's going on the action. Is it passing? It is running. Exciting. And the test passed. So the prepare command is now working, and we actually improved the running of the prepare command by using... By having this test, we had to force ourselves into figuring this stuff out. So fun stuff. I like it. So we did dedupe, we did prepare command. Let's do include node. So for include, well, actually before I move on, let me remove this and I will commit. So let's create a new commit, remove, we can remove that file. And then on this one, we add that new flag. And on this one, we removed the skip stuff and some comments. Awesome. Next, let's duplicate this test to test include node. And this time, instead of passing a prepare command, I will say no include node. And then in here, so that doesn't take any arguments, but then in here, when I am testing for the existence of stuff, what I have to do is super interesting actually. We cannot call this node because it will not be there. That's the entire point. But we can pass process path to use the node that we are using to run the tests. So that works. Yeah, it will be hard-coded into the executable, but that's fine because this is a throwaway executable that is only for testing. So that's fine. And then here is the path that we want to check for. So we don't actually need this whole path join stuff. We just need this. Or actually, does it hurt to have it here? To have it there? No, it doesn't hurt to have it there. So we'll say node modules being node, and we expect that file to not be there. So yeah, we cannot use the node that is embedded in the executable, so we change that to use our node, and then we check for the non-existence of node modules being node. Which is kind of misleading, but yeah. I guess we have tested for its presence everywhere else because of this, so yeah, alright, that seems like it will work. So let's run only this test. That test passed. Let's commit this. And then let's check GitHub. It failed, but it failed on a different guy this time. It failed on Windows. So let's see what's going wrong with Windows. It has to do with exclude. Invalid Unicode escape sequence. Okay. That has to do with our strategy for writing our tests. Because we run caxa, which will... So we have this caxa placeholder, which on Windows will contain backslashes. So, how do we fix this? Well, the problem is that on Windows, this string will look something like this. And then it says invalid or unexpected token. That's unusual. Ah, okay, because the backslash is the last character. So, okay, I guess I will copy this whole thing. So now it says invalid Unicode escape sequence, which of course it is an invalid escape sequence. But what if I use backslashes to delimit this? Then it says invalid Unicode. But what if I say string raw of that? Then it works and puts all the backslashes in place. So that's kind of annoying, but we could change all these to have simple quotes instead of backslashes. And then we could have some backslashes here and use string raw. Okay, let's do that. And we need to look for strings that look like this. Or actually, we need to look for things that look like this. So let's start a search. We have 21 occurrences of that. So these are fine. And we start having problem here. And it seems like the problematic instances are always in quotes. All right, so let's try to find the first one of these, which is this one, which is for exclude, which was the test that failed. Let me check that I don't have any onlys or skips. I don't. Okay. So every occurrence of these, I will have to replace with an occurrence of. So I guess I will do this in batch. So I'll remove these. I will need backslashes. But I will also want string raw. But of course, these backslashes are wrong. They should be single quotes. Yeah, whatever. Doesn't read all that nice, but I guess it's okay. And I did this in batch, and I'm checking that all occurrences were changed correctly. Now let's just run one of these tests, like maybe the exclude one. And it should pass. And the reason for this whole problem is that the caxa placeholder is replaced on a higher level. It is replaced before we even try to evaluate this command. So there is no opportunity for us to do the escaping in JavaScript itself. Okay, so the test has passed, and I really dislike the way that this reads. So let me see if there are occurrences. Yeah, there is already a precedent here. having require in double quotes. No, but yeah, okay, whatever. We'll do it like this. Let me double check. Okay, I will commit this and push this, and we'll see if the tests will pass on Windows in the GitHub action. Let's go for the home run here. Let's test remove build directory. Okay, I did the basics, but we need to think about how we are going to test this, because the build directory will have just a random name and we cannot really get a hold of it. So to test that, I would either have to build some facilities to get a hold of the build directory from outside, or how can I do this? Maybe I can use a prepare command. Yeah, I guess I can use a prepare command. That's kind of a hack. Or I can just not test this because it's so simple, so trivial. Why should I care? Let's look at the other tests. Are they trivial as well? They kind of are. Yeah, but I really want to treat the build directory as a private, an internal part of the build, something that you don't get to touch from the outside. So I guess the only way to do that is to hack around using a prepare command. So let's see if that's easy to do. We have a test for prepare command in which we pass a prepare command that produces a file. But in here, we could, instead of writing nothing to the file, we could pass process cwd. Right? Yeah, let's test that this makes sense. So this produces a build directory that contains my current working directory. And now I can test that a certain path exists, and it's not this path. What I should do is read this build directory file and test that whatever is in there still exists. Okay, let's do that. So we will require fs and we will check for the existence of something. This something is, well, we need to require fs, which is kind of silly, but that's the way I'm writing this, so I'll go with it. So we will have require fs dot read file sync. This file will have UTF-8 encoding, and the path to this file will be something that looks like this whole shenanigans. And what we have here is require path join string raw and then caxa, and not this whole thing, but build directory. And then we expect this to be there. So we expect this to be true. Let's run only this test and see how it goes. Meanwhile, let's go to GitHub and see if the tests are now passing on Windows. And it is not. Let's see why. Okay, so other tests are passing, and they also depend on the caxa placeholder. So there is something specific about exclude. What is it? Well, it's just that the file was there. How are we calling exclude? Well, we are using the slashes, so maybe this should have backslashes in there. It all has to do with how globby works and how fs works, fs extra works. But if I am right, then if it has to do with the backslashes, then this is super easy to fix. So we will write the fix and we will check if it worked or not. So if the process platform is Windows, then I will do things with backslashes in here. I wonder if I should just use maybe, well, how about I use the string raw trick we used on the other one. So if your platform is Windows, then pass the thing with backslashes. If your platform is not Windows, use forward slashes instead. And meanwhile, it seems like our remove build directory, which is a very hackish test, it passed. Do I have any dot only or skip? No. So with that, we have something else to test. Let's push this to GitHub and we'll see if we have Windows on the back now. And meanwhile, we'll write the final test for identifier. And I guess it will be similar to this one. So remove build identifier, remove build directory will be changed to identifier. And now we will pass a specific identifier, so we don't need the prepare command. And the identifier will be, well, I guess I will create an identifier before I start, so it will look something like this. Maybe a random string, or maybe it will be just identifier, whatever. Because I'm starting with a clean slate, I know that this identifier will not have been used already, so yeah. My identifier is identifier. And then I want to check I want to check the existence of the identifier folder So I guess what I can do here is replace this whole bag of tricks I want to replace this whole bag of tricks with an exist sync that should be true, and it should be my require os tmp dir. I think that's how it is spelled. Yes. By the way, what I did right now was to check that there were 2 occurrences, but you cannot see that behind my face. But now you can see it. Yeah, there are 2 occurrences of this, so it means I'm already using this elsewhere in the file. So it means that I got the spelling correct. Okay, so what I want to check is for the temp dir. Oh, I also want to require path join of this with caxa / applications / identifier. /0 maybe, because that will be the first attempt to extract this. No, I guess this is enough. So what we are checking is that the applications will be called identifier as opposed to the default, which would be echo command line parameters. And then let's remove this comment and put some only here. Meanwhile, let's go to GitHub and let's look at the situation of Windows. And now Windows is not even trying to run because it failed on Darwin. Socket timeout. This has occurred before, and it has to do with network connections, I think. I think that this has happened before, and it's trying to install some NPM dependency, something that I really have nothing to do with. So the fact that this test failed is completely dependent on the network connection. It's not my fault. So let's cancel everything that is running. Cancel, cancel, cancel. And it seems like I was able to request the cancellation. And then we will check again. We'll try the build again from scratch. And the test has passed. The identifier test has passed. So I can remove the only. Did I forget any onlys or skips? No. So our test suite is complete. I am pushing this, and now GitHub Actions will run the whole test suite. Meanwhile, let's look at the docs, because I think that is the last thing stopping us from releasing. So let's go over the entirety of the docs real quick to see if something stands out. Oh, one thing I know for sure is that we will want a changelog, and I don't have a changelog file, so I guess I will add a changelog section to the README. And we'll talk about version 2.0.0 here. Added support for ARM, both on Linux and Mac OS. Thanks, MaxB2. That's his handle, right? GitHub con MaxB2. Yes. Fixed fixed extraction, fixed race condition that would happen on extraction if well, it's not really a race condition. Fixed inconsistent application directory state that would happen if you stopped caxa in the middle of the extraction, or if multiple extractions are attempted at once. Also added several command line parameters to customize the build, and changed the command line parameters. So we changed directory is now called, let's put a right arrow, I guess we can do a table here. And we'll say from to, from directory to input, output stayed the same, and from command to the, what is it called? It's not an option, it is arguments, I think. Arguments, yes. The last arguments passed to caxa. Use to separate if your command includes something that starts with a dash. And I guess I could make this whole table indented, because then it will be under the bullet. And I guess I will say here breaking. And that's the reason why we have version 2. Instead of having like 1.1 or whatever. So that's it for the changelog. Let's see the build, and it is passing so far. But I will only celebrate when we have everything passing. So let's read the rest of the documentation real quick. We just do a quick glance at it. Well, I know one thing I need to change, and that is the help. I have the help here in the code, in the documentation. So call npx ts node source help, and we'll copy and paste the output. Caxa help is this. I need to copy from here on out, and then I will change from here on out. Is the indentation correct? It seems to be. Okay, so now let's take it from the top. Works on Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. Do I want to specify platforms? Maybe I will, just for fun. So Intel and ARM, Linux, we'll say Intel, ARM 6, ARM 7, ARM 64, I guess. Whatever, I think people will know. Okay. I should probably update this. When I update this example, I should probably come back here, but I will probably forget, so whatever. And of course, this example also needs to change. So directory is now called input, and this is now called... No, this stays the same actually, just the order changes. Yeah, input, output, and command. Okay, let me double check that I'm not skipping over anything important. Okay, calling an executable that is a node. So here we'll have a dash dash directory again. I guess I should probably look for every occurrence of dash dash directory. Well, there are only 2 at this point. I already fixed everything else. So we'll have something like this: input, and then the command will be at the end. Like so. Okay. Preserving the executable bit. I don't think that anything about this will change. Oh, I also need to look for dash dash command because all occurrences of dash dash command will be wrong. Set an environment variable in the command, for example. Have a different entry point for the packaged application, for example. Receive a command line argument that you embed in the packaging process, for example. And then next, here. So the solution via the... From there, it simply calls whatever command you told it to run when we package the project. Okay, only one occurrence of command, so we are good. Meanwhile, the test failed on Windows. I only have 5 minutes. Exclude didn't work. I really did my best, and I don't know why the exclude test is not passing on Windows, and I don't care enough to fix it. So let's look for exclude on the tests. And then we will say if process platform is not Win32, then run the exclude test. And in here, I can remove that hack that I was trying out. So if the process platform is not Windows, then run the tests for exclude. And Windows users will figure out what they need to do to exclude stuff from the Windows build. And they will be happy, and I won't have to care. So let's commit what we have and push, so GitHub Actions will run the tests on Windows while we are doing this documentation for 4 more minutes, and then we'll push 2.0. Whatever we have, we'll push, because tomorrow and on Friday, I will not be able to stream. And next week, I want to work on something else. So we are pushing 2.0 in 3 minutes, whether we like it or not. I hope that the tests pass on GitHub. The inner workings of caxa are very similar. So I don't think I need to change too much about the how it works section, but let's see if there is any reference to the stubs folder. Yes, there are. You may find the source code for the stub in stubs slash... No, it's now called source slash. And then, fun fact, using the self-extracting archive without caxa. Well, it's no longer that. That path doesn't exist anymore. So maybe I will just say copy the stub. And let's look for stubs. Or maybe even just stub. Yeah, the compiled stubs are available from GitHub releases. And the pre-compiled, is it a word, pre-compiled? The pre-compiled stubs are built using GitHub Actions and are available from GitHub releases. They include the npm package includes a checksums txt file you may refer to, well, file, including the checksums that you may check against the log of the GitHub actions run. Good enough. So this is a program written in Go that reads itself as a file, blah, blah, blah. You may find the source code for the stub in blah and the precompiled. No, you may find the source code for that in blah. You may build the stub with npm run build stub. There are precompiled stubs for the major platforms that are built. Okay, there are precompiled stubs for the major platforms that are built using GitHub Actions and are available from GitHub releases. The npm packages includes a checksum.txt file that you may check against the log of the GitHub Actions run. The stubs are distributed with caxa in compiled form, so you don't need a Go system, blah, blah, blah. No. If you have a Go, you may compile the build yourself. Oh, there you go. I had that already. This Go program has no dependencies, blah, blah, blah. You may build the Go, blah, 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 blah. You will need a Go compiler. The stub has no dependencies beyond the Go standard library, so you will need a Go compiler. But the stub has no dependencies beyond the Go standard library, so there is no need to set up Go modules or configure a Go path. How is the build going? Will I be able to release? The tests are passing on Darwin. They are passing on Linux. They will pass on Windows because I'm ignoring the test that doesn't pass. The tests are passing on Windows. We are releasing this. We are releasing this. Okay, stub. Looking for occurrences of stub. These are just references, so nothing in there should have changed. Let's go over the whole file. I think we are good. We are committing this, and all the tests on Intel have passed, and the tests have passed on ARM in other executions, right? In previous executions, the tests have passed on ARM, like this one. So if we put the two together, we know that the tests will pass everywhere. So let's npm version release invalid version release version, well, help version major minor patch pre-major pre-minor pre-patch we release from Git. What do? Do I say npm version major? Yeah, 2.0.0. All right, we have a 2.0.0 coming out. Oh, I need to say origin. And I will also push to master. So this will publish, hopefully, this will publish to GitHub releases to NPM as well. I do think that the pulse install is pointing at the releases, and the GitHub actions are ready to publish to NPM. We tested that in previous streams. So everything should be in place. This should be going out to NPM when this run succeeds, which it should succeed. There are more things that I want to do with caxa, of course, but tomorrow and the day after that I will not be able to stream. And on Monday I want to start with something different. So on Monday I want to start with this idea I have for a note-taking application on the desktop. So you will be able to, and the motivation is my streams, you will be able to write on the screen here with a tablet. And I want to do an app to do this, because I don't know of any app that is open source, and I'm not even sure that we will be able to do this, but I have this idea, so I want to start working on it. So we will sketch something. It will be an Electron application probably. So yeah, tune in Monday for something completely different. We will talk about Electron and SVGs and taking notes and whatnot. And then we will return to caxa at some point in the future. But that's it for now. Thank you for subscribing to the channel, supporting me on Patreon and PayPal. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. I hope you learned something. I hope you had fun. And yeah, and if the build doesn't pass, we are still waiting on the build. If the build doesn't pass, then maybe we'll change the plans for Monday and we'll come back here and fix stuff. But the build will pass, right? It will pass. So yeah, I see you Monday for some new project for this desktop app that allows you to take notes in the middle of your stream. I see you there. Thanks for being here. Bye.